Ikarus Parkour is a game about movement, aesthetic, and climbing to the top just to fall down again. But there is one peculiarity. In a 1-week span, a speedrun community emerged and disappeared. These times were set in May, but the game doesn't even come out until August. This is not the history of Ikarus Parkour speedrunning. This is the history of speedrunning the demo. Now let's talk about the game. Ikarus Parkour is a platformer where you run out the front door with only one goal: making it to the top. The game can be divided into 3 sections. First is the bottom section that spans between 0 and 57 meters. It is the section known for its easier jumps and has several areas including the stone pillars, this statue, and this fruitier arrow themed room that leads to the next section. The middle section spans between 57 and 123 meters. This section introduces more higher risk jumps and more launch pads. Then we have this top section that spans between 123 and 184 meters. It is marked by this second statue and the most punishing jumps in the game, with only running, jumping, and wall jumping. These were the only movement options to beat the game. On May 16th, 2025, the first run was completed with a time of 5 minutes and 21 seconds. It was an unexceptional run. It did not use any skips or groundbreaking strategies. It was just a run that had fairly clean movement and followed the intended game design path to beat the game. It was just a run that represented the average gameplay of an average player. However, in just under 3 hours of the first ever submitted time, a new world record emerged, this time with a meta-defining strategy that influenced all future runs. It was called By loosely timing jumps against a slope, you can store momentum, and by performing a wall jump, all of that stored energy gets converted into vertical height. And that changes everything. Knocking down the world record by 30 seconds, Bullet Club remains on top with this discovery. And by cutting more time by skipping sections using an electrical box and fixing his mistakes from his previous time, he beat his own record by over a minute. Then 10 hours later, the record was broken again by another 30 seconds, using the same strategies, but using cleaner movement. A ladder that usually takes 1 minute and 7 seconds to reach can now be reached in only 30 seconds. And Bullet Club discovered a consistent setup for it. By aligning yourself to the edge of the statue's foot, you can do an incomplete wall bounce to the statue and wall jump over to get to the ladder. Earning the time of 3 minutes and 4 seconds, a lot of the time was lost due to missing important jumps at the end. However, that world record lasted less than a second, because the new runner, Xylix, submitted the first 3-minute flat time at the exact same time Bullet Club submitted his time. In this new run, they did not use the statue skip because the setup was not found yet. Instead, they optimized the first wall bounce skip to reach a farther point of the game. Combine that with no mistakes, he broke the world record by 4 seconds. While people are incorporating wall bounces for faster times, a new speedrunner discovered something entirely new. Something that was as impactful as wall bouncing. And it was called b-hopping. One unique thing about this game is that you can jump right before landing. As a result, bunny hopping has the same mechanics as wall bouncing. But whereas wall bouncing requires a slope, b-hopping can be done anywhere. A speedrunner named Molwi used b-hopping to skip the stone pillars to save 4 seconds. but they did not use a statue skip. Instead, they replaced Bullet Club's old wall-bound spot with a new one to reach the top section, which only saved around 5 seconds against the current world record. In the last section, they discovered that the base of the second statue was actually a slope. As a result, they were able to perform a wall bounce to save another 10 seconds. From there, they were able to complete the run with a time of 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Given how there were a lot of new discoveries, there was a lot of room for improvement, and the newest world record proved it. In this run, several strategies were used. They used the first statue skip, hopped along the long corridor, used Molly's wall bounce spot, and instead of using the second statue skip, they opted to use the Bullet Club electrical box skip. However, this world record was short-lived when Nathan submitted his time. It was very similar to the last run, but with one major difference. Instead of using Molly's wall bounce spot, he found a better way to use Bullet Club's original one. But soon after, molwi beat the world record with the first sub 2 minute time by combining everything. It was the first run that combined all known techniques. First, he used the first statue skip, but lost 4 seconds compared to the previous record. They then made up 3 seconds on the first wall bounce, and since the previous record did not include the second statue skip, molwi became 16 seconds faster, earning the first sub 2 minute time of 1 minute and 56 seconds. But out of nowhere, one of the most technical speedrunners ever beat the record by optimizing everything. He performed perfect B-hops at the start to get onto the statue, and he was able to reach the ladder in just 14 seconds. He then did more bunny hops to skip the liminal room, reaching the second section in just 37 seconds. Then, he immediately did the first wall bounce, but optimized it further to land closer to the launch pad. Reaching the last section at only just 51 seconds, it was 25 seconds faster than the previous record. After that, he did everything else the same, but more efficiently. Their run was considered to be perfect. At this point, they were the only person to combine all of the hardest strats that yielded the most gain. But it wasn't better mechanics that beat this record, but rather a new discovery instead. At this point in time, speedrunning Ikarus Parkour have been heavily optimized, but there is one area whose route did not change since the first submitted time, which was clearing this room. Of course you can B-hop to clear it, but that is incredibly difficult, and it takes an additional 10 seconds to even reach this room from the first ladder. In this new record, you can skip this room entirely by doing a wall bounce on the first statue. By comparing the splits, this will only save 5 seconds against B-hopping through the room, but it is still a safer and more consistent strategy to use. After that, more time was saved by using a new setup for the second statue skip, which also made things more consistent. It did not take long for Anorak to learn these new setups. With these discoveries, they were the first person to get a sub 1 minute time. They did everything perfectly, from the B-hops at the start of the game to the wall bounces throughout, but they found something new. At this point in speedrunning, the last section of the game was considered to be the slowest part. Once you do the second statue skip, you would have to play the rest of the game as intended, which takes 25 seconds. However, Anorak discovered a new use for the second statue skip, which leads to the hardest trick of the game, corner B-hops. From the second statue skip, they launched themselves to this platform. From there, they positioned themselves at the corner and performed forward B-hops to gain speed, and eventually launched themselves to the end. This trick requires precise timing, especially when there are no visual cues. Only people who can do B-hops consistently can do it, and they were the only one. This became the longest standing record by lasting more than 24 hours, but then another new speedrunner surpassed it. Due to the high level of skill required for corner B-hops, a runner named sprinqqq found another way to reach the end. At the last section, they used the slope of the second statue to build up speed. Instead of doing a wall bounce on the statue, they used the speed to bounce from the floor instead to land on this light fixture. The light fixture itself was a slope, so they were able to do another wall bounce to the end. This new strat allowed them to beat the world record by 1 second. By further perfecting their technique, they became the first person to get a sub 50-second time. And with that, this is the history of speedrunning the Ikarus Parkour demo. Thank you for watching. And with that run, Jumpy became the first undisputed world record holder to this date.
Thank you for watching.
Hi, hello. So if you're still here, I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I do want to give a shout out to Vanya, who is the developer of the game, for sending me their game soundtracks so I could use in my video. And I also just want to give a shout out to the people who are giving me feedback like upon like the previous revisions I've been sending them. And like although like this video has been in the making for like the past 3 to 4 months, I still wouldn't really call this a finished video, but I think I did enough and I just want to start on other projects. So yeah. Also check out the game on Steam. It's called Ikarus Parkour.